Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about slope from a graph, slope from 2 points, and lastly slope from an equation. So before we start that, let's first talk about what slope is. Slope is the rate of vertical change compared to horizontal change. A lot of times they refer to it as the rise over run. So I want everyone to just take a look at the formula right here. M is what we use to refer to as the slope, and it's your vertical change, your rise, over your horizontal change, which is your run. So your vertical change deals with your y-axis. So if you look at this formula right here, basically M is going to be equivalent to y2 minus y1, which is your vertical change, over x2 minus x1, which is your x-axis or your horizontal change. A lot of people like to remember it as you have to rise before you can run. So we have 4 different types of slope. This first one here is a horizontal line, which means that you have a slope of 0. Okay, obviously if it's not increasing or decreasing, then you would be a 0 slope. And I have an example here, m equals 0 over 3. Well, we know that 0 divided by 3 is 0, which makes it a 0 slope. A 0 slope will always look like a horizontal line. A negative slope, notice in this one, my line looks like it's going downhill. Any type of negative slope will be a downhill line. You're always going to want to look at it going left to right. Just like you read the page of a book, you look at your slope left to right as well. And as you can see, going from left to right, it is decreasing. An example of a negative slope would be m equals -2. We'll get into what that means later. And then over here we have a positive slope. So as it goes from left to right, you can see that it's increasing. It looks like you're going uphill. An example of a positive slope would be m equals 2. And then undefined. Well, we know that you can't divide any number by 0. If you try to divide any number by 0, you're going to get an error message on your calculator. So basically, any time that you end up with a number over 0, we call that undefined, and that would be a vertical line. How to determine the slope of a line from a graph? Well, basically, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to locate 2 points on your graph that fall on the intersection of your y-axis and your x-axis. So let's take a look at this point right here, and then we'll take a look at this point right there. You can use those 2 points to apply your rise over your run. So here I can see, remember it's vertical change over horizontal change. So I can see that vertically I'm going down 2 units. So my rise would be a -2 because we're going down 2 units. And then my run or my horizontal change, I'm going over 1 unit. So my horizontal change or my run would be 1. -2 over 1 means that I have a slope of -2. My line is decreasing, hence why my slope is a negative number. Okay, so let's take a look at a few examples. Here the points are given to you. They gave us a point right here, and they also gave us a point right up here. So it's a positive slope. I can tell that right away because I can see that going left to right. My line is increasing, so my slope should be a positive number. Now we're going to count our vertical change. So going from -2 up to +4 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units. So +6 is my rise. And then I'm going over 1, 2 units to the right, which makes my horizontal change or my run 2. 6 over 2 is the same thing as 6 divided by 2. So that means we have a slope of 3, which makes sense because if you actually count up 3, 1, 2, 3, and then over 1, I could easily put a point right here as well. From this point, if I go up 3 and over 1, 1, 2, 3, you'll notice I could put another point right here. Let's take a look at the next one. As you can see, the line is decreasing as we go left to right, so that's why we have a negative slope. Let me just move that out of the way. The points were not on this line, so I added them in blue, as you can see. So let's take a look at this point going to this point. So I'm going down. We want to look at the vertical change first. I'm going down 1, 2, 3 units, so -3, which I have written here for my rise, and then I'm going over 1, 2 units. So my horizontal change or my run is 2. So that leaves us a slope of -3 over 2, which means you're going down 3 over 2. We can test it right here. 1, 2, 3 over 2. So it works. Let's try a few more of these. So I put these points on here in red. Let's take a look. To go from this point to this point, I'm going down 1, 2, 3 units. That's -3. And I'm going over 1, 2 units. This is similar to the last example we just did. So your slope would be -3 over 2, which makes sense because if you look at your line, it's decreasing as you go from left to right, which means it should be a negative slope. Okay, here's this example. I added all these points in, as you can see. Again, we've got a line that's decreasing, so my slope is going to be negative. To go from this point here to this point here, I'm going down 2 over 1. Then again, down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, and then down 2 over 1. So as you can see for my rise and my run, for my rise, we were going down 2 units, which is -2, and our run, we are going over to the right 1 unit. So -2 over 1 gives me a slope of -2. Okay, here, notice I put the points in again. As you can see, going left to right, we're increasing, which means we have a positive slope. So from this point to this point, I'm going up 1 over 3, up 1 over 3, up 1 over 3. So your rise would be 1, your run would be 3, giving you a slope of 1/3. Let's talk about slope from 2 points. I did on the previous slide give you the formula for this, but we know that slope is your rise over your run, or your change in your y's over your change in the x. This was the formula I gave you on an earlier slide. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. y2 minus y1, those are your y coordinate points, which makes sense because that's your vertical change. And down here, x2 minus x1, those are your horizontal coordinate points, or your horizontal change. So let's take this formula and apply it to some problems. So there's a lot going on here. So it says, what is the slope of the line through -7, -2, and -6, 7? So as you can see, I've labeled my points. This first one, I put x1 and y1, and I put x2 and y2. Now, I'm just going to simply plug these in to my formula. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. This is a formula that you guys will see in the years to come in algebra. So the sooner you can memorize it, the better off you will be. It's one of the many formulas that you will need to know in your upcoming years in math. So let's plug those numbers in. So y2 is 7. y1 is -2, so 7 minus -2, and then x2 is -6 minus x1, so minus -7, and now we can go ahead and calculate our slope. So 7 minus -2, keep change becomes 7 plus 2, which is 9. And then -6 minus -7, again, keep change becomes -6 plus 7, leaving me with 1. So that leaves us with a slope of 9. Okay, again, I've put the formula there for you, and I've also labeled x1, y1, x2, and y2. We're finding the slope of the line through those 2 points. So I'm just going to plug that into my formula. y2 is 5 minus y1, which is -10. And then we've got x2, which is -1, minus x1, which is -5. 5 minus -10, keep change becomes 5 plus 10, or 15. And -1 minus -5, keep change becomes -1 plus 5, which is 4. So your slope of your line would be 15 over 4, which means if you were to graph this, it would go up 15 over 4, up 15 over 4. Okay. Go ahead and plug your points in. y2 minus y1 is -3 minus 2. x2 minus x1 is 3 minus negative 4. Negative 3 minus 2, keep change becomes negative 3 plus negative 2. And 3 minus negative 4 becomes 3 plus 4. So that's going to leave us with a slope of negative 5/7, which means that you have a line that is decreasing left to right. And if you were to graph your line, it means that you would be going down 5 over to the right 7, down 5 over to the right 7. Okay, here's a few more examples for you. Find the slope of the line that passes through each pair of points. Simplify all answers and leave answers as fractions, not decimals if needed. So I've got your slope formula right here. I've also written it up top. Here's your points. It's nice because they're all positive numbers. So we've got 6, y2 minus y1 is 6 minus 3. And then x2 minus x1 is 8 minus 4. So that leaves you with a slope of 3/4, which means your line is increasing because it's positive. And your vertical change would be 3, and your horizontal change would be 4. So you'd be going up 3 over 4, up 3 over 4. Okay, the next one, again, they're all positive numbers. So we're going to do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So 5 minus 3 over 7 minus 1. 5 minus 3 is 2. 7 minus 1 is 6. That leaves us with a simplified slope of 1/3. Again, it's a positive slope, which means my line is increasing as we go left to right. And your vertical change would be up 1. And then you'd be going over 3 to the right. So up 1 over 3, up 1 over 3. Let's take a look at this last one. Again, we're just going to plug our numbers into the formula. y2 minus y1 is 7 minus negative 2. And x2 minus x1 is 2 minus negative 1. Keep change. That leaves you with 7 plus 2. And then 2 plus 1 on the bottom. So that's going to leave us with a slope of 9 over 3, which simplifies to 3. Again, we have a positive slope. So your line would be increasing, and you'd be going up 3 over 1. Up 3 over 1, because we know whole numbers written as a fraction will always be over 1. Okay, let's talk about slope from an equation. This is the last skill. So here is your slope-intercept form. Again, this is a formula that you will be using for several years to come. And the formula for that is y equals mx plus b. We've been referring to our slope as m. And b refers to your y-intercept, which means the point in your y-axis where the line crosses the y-axis. X and y would simply just be points or coordinates that you could plug in to make this equation true. So let's take a look at the example I have here. Y equals 7 over 2x minus 3. That means that your slope would be 7 over 2. It's positive, so your line would be increasing as it goes to the right. And your vertical change would be up 7. And then your horizontal change would be over 2 to the right. So up 7 over 2. And this line would cross our y-axis at negative 3. So here again, I've included all this right here over to the right as a little cheat sheet for you. Let's take a look at this equation. So the first thing you want to do with your equation is you want to write it in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. So you'll notice that I'm going to move this 6x over to the other side of my equal sign. When you move something to the other side, if you think about it, it becomes the negative of it. Because if I were to subtract this from here to get rid of it, I would be subtracting it over there as well. So that would leave us with 10y equals 8 minus 6x. I prefer to write it in slope-intercept form. So notice that I've put my negative 6x in the beginning of the equation. And then since 8 is positive, that would be negative 6x plus 8. So that leaves me with 10y equals negative 6x plus 8. Now you shouldn't have anything in front of your y. Notice there's no coefficient up here. So we want to get y by itself. So in order to do that, I need to divide through by 10. Whatever we do on one side of our equation, we have to do to the other. So as you can see, both terms here, I've divided through by 10. So that leaves me with y equals negative 6 over 10x plus 8 over 10. And then my final format, I've just simplified my fractions. So that leaves me with y equals negative 3/5 x plus 4/5. So what this means is that this line would cross my y-axis at 4/5 or 0.8. And my slope is -3/5. It's a negative slope, which means my line would be decreasing as I go left to right. And it would be decreasing down 3/5, down 3/5. As you can see, the correct answer for your slope is -3/5. Okay, again, I've got your slope intercept form up here on the right. Here, there's a little bit more to move around. So we would want to get rid of our 2x. So I'm going to, well, actually, the first thing I did here was I took this y and added it on both sides. Oops, let me do a color you can see. So plus y, that cancels, and then plus y. So that leaves you with 2x plus 5y equals 6x. Let me write that over here. 2x plus 5y equals 6x. And now we want to get all of our x's to one side. So I'm going to subtract 2x on both sides. And that's going to leave me with 5y equals 4x. Okay. Notice that there's no y-intercept here. And what that means is that you have a proportional equation, which means that your line is going through the origin. So your y-intercept would just be 0, 0. And then don't forget we need to get y by itself. So I'm going to divide both sides by 5. And that leaves us with y equals 4/5 x, which I have right down here, making your slope 4/5, which means your line is increasing since it's a positive slope and it's going up 4/5, up 4/5. And it would cross your y-axis at the origin 0, 0. Okay, let's try another one. As you can see here, I've drawn the lines to distribute that 5. So that's going to leave me with y minus 3 equals 5x minus 10. Next step to get y by itself is I'm going to add 3 on both sides. And that leaves us with y equals 5x minus 7. So your y-intercept would be -7, which means your line is going to cross your y-axis at -7. And your slope is 5. It's positive, so your line would be increasing, and it would be increasing going up 5/1, up 5/1. So your answer here would be 5. Let's do one last one. Again, there's some distribution that needs to happen here. So first, let's distribute our 5. That's going to leave us with 5y plus 10 equals, and then let's distribute the 4x minus 12. First thing I'm going to do is get rid of my 10 here. So I'm going to subtract 10 on both sides. That leaves me with 5y equals 4x, -12 minus 10, keep change, becomes -12 plus -10, giving me -22. And now to get y by itself, since there's a coefficient of 5, remember that means multiplication. So we're going to do the opposite, which is division. So I'm going to divide through by 5. And what we do on one side, we have to do to the other. So each term on the right needs to be divided by 5 also. That's going to leave us with a final equation of y equals 4/5 x minus 22/5. -22/5 is your y-intercept, and your slope is 4/5, which means your line's increasing since it's positive, and it's going up 4/5, up 4/5. Okay, so that does it for those 3 skills. Again, if you want to see some additional examples, you can watch the videos in Khan Academy. The note-taking packet pages, which correlate to these skills, are pages 9 through 12. I will be posting those answers on Google Classroom. Please feel free to email me if you have any questions about any particular problems. Have a great day, everyone.